Welcome to the PinniPOD, where we're going to talk about all things seal pupping season, everything seal pup.
Everything to do with seals.
Everything you could possibly want to know about baby seals. They're kind of our
seals
bread and butter. So,
yeah.
So to start off, you might already know me, but my name is Kendra, and I'm a registered vet tech here at the Vancouver Aquarium Marine Mammal Rescue Society, and I also run our social media. And here to talk to us today about seal pups is the wonderful Emily, and I'll let her introduce herself as well.
Yeah, I'm Emily. I'm the assistant manager here at Marine Mammal Rescue Society, and I'm also a registered veterinary technician. I've been here since 2010, and yeah, work. Although I manage the staff and help out that way, animal care is still a big part of my job. So
yeah. Thanks so much for joining me today. Because no one else would. I thought we'd start off by talking a little bit about seal pupping season and what exactly that means and what it is for us. If you want to give a little rundown on that.
Always love talking about seal pups.
Can't go wrong talking about seal pups.
I know.
What kind of seals do we rescue?
Yeah, here at Marine Mammal Rescue Center, our primary species are harbour seals. Yeah. Such a fascinating species.
I love them. They're so basic, but they're so great.
They're called the common seal, but nothing common about them. Interesting.
That's so cool.
Most of the pups are born, let's say, end of June, early July. Mm-hmm. They're with their moms for 4 to 6 weeks. During that maternal period, the moms have to go out and forage. So they have to go and eat fish to sustain lactation. Mm-hmm. And that's why pups are on beaches sometimes by themselves.
Yeah.
And sometimes for an entire tide cycle.
Yeah, so I'd say for us, like you said, the season definitely differs depending where people are in the world. So I know California, they've already been getting seal pups already. We're not going to start seeing them probably until mid-June. That being said, I think we talked about this earlier, but the earliest one we ever rescued was Dwayne the Rockfish Johnson in 2019, and he arrived on May 2nd, so it could also be any time now. Yeah.
I know one was Emerald back a couple of years ago, and he was May 23rd, because that's my mom's birthday, so I always remember that one.
Emerald was actually the first harbour seal I ever worked with.
No.
Yeah, that was 2018.
Oh, yeah.
That was my first season. I started June 8th, and he was already there. He was the only pup on site.
Oh, that's cool.
And then, he was one of my favorites. But yeah, so our pupping season pretty much is June through... I mean, we have pups on site pretty much through December, but the really busy time for us is that end of June, July, August, because that is when all of the harbour seal pups are born here on the west coast of Canada in British Columbia.
The earlier kind of more prematurely born pups end of June, and then you get kind of the late born pups maybe early August.
Do you want to talk a little bit about why we know pups are premature or when they are premature?
For sure. So early on in the season, like I said, we get what we consider premature pups. So we know they're premature because they're born with a long kind of grayish white coat. So not the spotted coat. No. And that's called lanugo. So just like all mammal babies, they have a lanugo in utero, and it should be lost before they're born. Yeah. And so we know those pups maybe didn't get to cook fully. And they bring their own baggage with them.
They do. Like
premature human babies. They can sometimes have some developmental issues like maturity of lungs and respiratory system. And
they're definitely a tougher pup, especially for the beginning of the season. For us, they require usually a lot more medical care, and their blood glucose can drop quicker than others, and we usually feed them a little bit more often than we do once we've got the full-term pups on site. But they're so cute. So when we talk about pupping season, it is all harbour seal pups here, for us at least.
It's where the bulk of our work comes from.
Yeah. And so how many pups do we get on average in a year or in a season?
I would say, if we added it all up over the years, it's probably close to about 100 pups per year, give or take a few either way. We had a bumper crop back in 2017, and we did over 202, which seemed... a lot. It's a lot of work.
That is a lot. I know I've talked about this before with other people, but when we have 200 harbour seals or we have 150 harbour seals, we always get a lot of questions about people asking us, why are you getting so many? Are you getting more and more? Is this worrisome? But it's not really, I don't think. I think this is something that is normal during the summer in British Columbia. We get a lot of pups that are admitted to our center for various reasons, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But those large numbers, they seem like a lot. But for us, we do really see, I think one of our lower years in the past few years was sort of around 70. But yeah, we get these 200 pup years as well. And there's not really anything that is happening out in the wild that we're getting those numbers for a certain
because
reason.
the Pacific harbor seal population has been stable for well over 25 years now. It's not like there's this huge influx of pups, you know, and that's like it's a population explosion and that's why we're getting more pups or less pups. But there is going to be a natural fluctuation in population numbers every year, right? And, you know, the other things that we have to consider are like where the pups come from. The majority of them come from the most inhabited or highly populated areas of British Columbia, right? So it's like a perfect storm, pup on a beach, large population accessing the beach.
And people,
then, it's like a perfect storm there. You know, they may be inhabiting areas that people typically haven't seen them in for a number of years, but definitely, you know, goes back to how do I find a quiet place to get away from the predators? So there's those things. And then like illness, emerging diseases. What happens if there's something going on out there that, you know, causes a higher number of maternal separations or, you know, there's just something infectious that goes through the pups.
And we've been lucky definitely in the past that we haven't had anything crazy like that. But I know like our colleagues down in California right now are dealing with
the wood.
If there's wood to knock on, we're knocking on it. If you're watching this, please knock on wood. But unfortunately, our colleagues down in California and the rescue centers down there have been dealing with domoic acid and these harmful algae blooms that are causing neurological signs and death in these animals. And so those can cause for a lot more admits in a year as well. So as far as our year to year, we can look back into the 90s even or prior to that, however long we've been rescuing our harbor seals for, and see that we do have some years, I think, was it like 2011, 2012, there was like a close to 200, there's 170 pup year. A couple of years later, there was 75, 80. We've seen upwards. So we definitely fluctuate, and there doesn't necessarily seem to be any sort of something dramatic that's happening that we're like, oh, this weather event happened and now we have 100 extra harbor seals. It's just sort of a natural fluctuation as you would expect, just being out in the wild.
And I think too, it's really important that we here, like at the center, we're so diligent with our program and making sure that you know, we always get out there and we're doing public education. Like just explaining to people how harbor seals work and the maternal period, all of those kinds of things help. Just getting it out there, like how you can be responsibly helpful in a situation and things like that. So I think it's also about just continuing to always want to do better in your program as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we've definitely over the past few years done a lot more education outreach. We're talking in elementary schools and we're attending public markets and events and things like that. We have carts over at the Vancouver Aquarium with our wonderful volunteers that are educating people on what to do if you come across a seal pup in the summer or any marine mammal that might be in distress, or maybe a marine mammal that's not in distress and you just don't know that it's not in distress, or you're not sure if that's normal, what to do and how to safely help that animal without harming it.
Yes.
But how to help it, hopefully.
Yeah, or allowing, because let's face it, you know, you find a seal pup on the beach, you are going to become emotionally invested in that
how could you not?
I mean,
they're perfect and adorable, and 100%. Their eyes are like humongous.
And we know all too well that emotion can lead people, and often does lead people that aren't educated to in the marine mammal world to do the wrong thing, right, and to interfere. So I think, you know, we're always really trying to minimize that human interference, marine mammal disturbance piece, although it still happens quite a bit.
It does.
This is going to be an ongoing.
One of our biggest reasons for admitting seal pups in the summer. It's got to be up there.
I feel like it does have to be up there. I mean, if you even indirectly, a lot of our pups are labeled as maternal separation, right? So we're not entirely sure why they split from their mother. Is it an injury? Is it an illness? Is it just something first-time mom? There can be so many reasons, right, for that maternal separation. That human interference piece, you could never rule it out.
No.
Right? So someone interferes with a pup, someone moves it, someone, you know, people are crowding around this pup, mom can't come back to it. So you can't really
You can't really
rule that out.
Yeah.
And so if I had to guess, I would say that, especially in the highly populated areas, coastline.
Yeah. So it's normal for harbor seal moms to leave their pups on a beach, on a dock, not always in the most convenient place, but to leave them somewhere while they go off to forage, because they still need to eat so that they can provide and keep their pup healthy as well. So during that time, how long would you say on average, if we had to guess, the mom will leave their pup for?
I think that's a good question. I don't know if I have an average, but I always say it could be up to an entire tide cycle.
Yeah.
Right. So it might be a couple of hours. It might be a little bit longer, but depending on where they're popped up, like if you think about areas like Boundary Bay or like Parksville, where the tide goes out so far.
You get these mud flats for like a kilometer out to open sea. Yeah. Where if you leave your pup on the beach during that time, the tide goes out and then it's a kilometer between mom and pup.
Yes.
You then have to wait for that, or they would then have to wait for that full cycle.
Absolutely. So I think I don't know an average time. I'm not sure if it's published or not, but I always say up to a full tide cycle. Yeah. And when I'm talking to members of the public, part of our job too, when we have people call in an animal that they found, part of it is letting them know a time frame. Yeah. Right. So we aren't just necessarily going to hop in the rescue van and like peel over there and pop the pup in the carrier because the mom's not there. Yeah. They are hardy when with mom. It's their best chance of survival. So we don't want to pluck pups that off a beach that potentially have a mother. They can do the work. We don't need more work. No.
We're good with our 70 harbor seal pup year. Yeah. We're okay with that. But and I think that's so important, and it's a huge part of our education piece as well, is to let people know that it is very normal for harbor seal pup to be alone on a beach. Yeah. How do we find out about seals that need help? We're not just patrolling the beach looking for animals that might need us. So what's sort of our process for that?
That sounds really nice.
I could spend every day just like walking up and down the beach. I mean, we did do that the other day.
There are times.
There are times. We did have a seal that was spotted and looking funny the other day, so we went down with our coffee and our dogs down to a pier, and we're like, oh, just keep an eye out.
Have a little look-a-loo. But no, we're not out there, patrolling. We don't have a patrol schedule of the local beaches. We don't have time for that. No. But that's where we utilize the members of the public. Yeah. So typically it's someone who's a beach goer or someone in a boat. We'll find pups on beaches, rocky shore, sometimes docks.
Sometimes on their boats.
Sometimes on their
swim grids, anything that's really low to the water that they'll haul out on. Yeah. So can you sort of walk us through what happens from the moment someone calls in a harbor seal pup to it being rescued, or what that day or two might look like?
Sure.
Or maybe not. Maybe it's an hour because they're injured or whatever.
Absolutely. But. Yeah. Up to full tide cycle. Yeah.
Up to full tide cycle.
We get calls from all over coastal BC. And typically it's members of the public calling in because they found, if we talk specifically about seal pup, maybe it's a seal pup on the beach. We always want people to call because we start a case file for every animal that gets called in. And then, what we'll do, we take a lot of information. So we take a lot of caller information, location in British Columbia, directions, more specific directions to the animal. We'll ask if there's, obvious wounds. Is it focalizing? Does it have lanugo? Is it a fully spotted coat? Are there any other harassment? Lots of people. Is it on a dog beach? All of these kinds of things. And this is how we triage how emergent the situation is. And then we typically ask how long they've been observing it for, because sometimes it's only like 10 minutes, or I just came upon it, or it's, hey, I saw it last night before I went to bed, and now it's in the exact same spot out front of my house. So there's those kinds of situations. And then we ask them to take photos for us. So, in the world of smartphones, most people have the ability to take some photos and then text them to us. And it's a great way for us to be able to remote, like from Vancouver at the center, to know what's going on up in, let's say, North Island or, West Coast or Victoria, whatever it is. And from those photos, we can kind of make an assessment on body condition, hydration status. So do they have eye rings? Do they have curly whiskers? Do they
curly whiskers indicating that they're dehydrated.
Yes.
And then same thing with eye rings. When we have a fluffy, dry little seal and their eyes are perfectly dry, they're often dehydrated, but a really well hydrated seal will have these big wet patches. It kind of looks like a little raccoon mask around their eye.
Yep.
That usually indicates that they're well hydrated. So just some things that we look for.
Yep. And then body conditions. So a seal pup should be torpedo shaped. Like they should fill out.
Yeah.
They should look well filled out.
They should have an hourglass figure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no tapering behind the head.
Yeah.
No sort of, they can have, right after they're born, they can have kind of fetal folds in their skin, but a pup that has kind of folded skin, I love it. We say it looks too big for its shirt.
Yeah.
But yeah, that should all be filled out with blubber. So if they're with their mom and if they're in good body condition, it's a pretty good indicator that they're with mom or they haven't been without her very long.
Yeah.
But a lot of the seals that we rescue are very deflated and have a really poor body condition.
Yeah.
And no eye rings. And just look very wasted.
Yeah. You can usually tell as soon as you get a photo, you can pretty much say right off the bat, okay, we're going to monitor that animal because maybe it looks really good day one. And then someone sends a photo the next day and you're like, okay, so you don't look as hydrated anymore.
Yes.
You don't have eye rings. And then, but you're still looking pretty chunky. Okay, it's right in front of your property. Let us know if it's there tomorrow. And then maybe day 3, you're like, okay, it is actually alone. It now is looking sad. It's not moving from the spot.
So after the call, it's more about data collection, just getting all of the information that we need and then setting up a plan. So let's say we decide that we need to intervene and we're going to collect to rescue and bring back to the center. If it was local, we would send the rescue van and a staff member, and they would go and pick the animal up, do kind of an infield assessment, and then pick the animal up, bring it back to the center. If it's further away, or say, Gulf Islands or somewhere along the islands, main island, then we would reach out to our network and we would put together a transport plan.
Some really great airlines that we wouldn't be able to get half the pups that we do without these airlines. And then, from there, they would make their way to the center here, and then they start the rehabilitation process. So if you come across a harbor seal pup, one of the things that people are always trying to do, or will a lot of times maybe not know who to call, so people will act first and then call us after. We always want people to call us first so that we can sort of help them through that moment and figure out what the best case for that animal is. But one of the things that comes to mind is people always want to try and feed them, or will call us and be like, I tried to feed it this, this, and this. And I think people will try to feed oysters. We've had goat milk in a bottle. We've had
chicken drumsticks.
We had
chicken of the sea,
fillet of fish or something. We've had some pretty funky things. And if you think about having a newborn human child that's maybe 1 or 2 days old, you wouldn't feed them a hamburger or a steak. The same way you wouldn't.
It's not going to go very well. It's not going to go very well.
But then also that harbor seals and are lactose intolerant, so they're mom's milk is cow's milk or goat's milk. That's not going to do them any good because their mom's milk is so, what is it, like 50% fat? It's super high in
fat contents,
but it doesn't have lactose. That's correct, right? I've just been telling this to people for years and years on end. But so there is lactose in seal milk, but very, very low percentages of it, which is why clearly I've been telling people for so long that they're lactose intolerant.
Good job,
but maybe not to the same degree a human would be lactose intolerant. But moral of the story, that is giving them milk or cow's milk or goat's milk or almond milk is not going to do any good for them. Any human interaction with them is not going to do them any good. We often see people taking them out of the water. Even when we get pups, suckling on boats. They love to suckle on boats. Suckling is the same thing as a human baby with a little teether or a soother or something like that. Perfectly normal. They're self-soothing. Yes, they might be hungry. Mom might be coming back for them. But if there's a pup swimming around, they usually have good energy. They're waiting for mom. So when we get those calls, same thing.
We do not pluck them from the water.
Don't take them out of the water. We'll monitor them. Hey, let us know. It definitely sucks to be that person on a boat being like, I'm staring at this pup and it's alone and it's suckling and it's crying,
and
they're not crying because they're
each
sad.
situation is totally different. Like if we look back at Gustav last year,
yes.
Okay, so get the call, North Vancouver. I happen to live over there. So on my way to work, I took a swing by the marina, and sure enough, here's this tiny little full Lanugo pup. With a full placenta attached, and he's on the far side of a docked, great big kind of, I don't know, it was a yacht, like it was a great big boat, and he was on the other side of it trying to figure out how or where to haul out. He was so disoriented, and there was this tiny bubble of air that was kind of trapped within the placenta, and it basically just like kept him afloat. So sure, that's not a normal situation.
No.
But for the most part, if we have an animal that looks to be full term and is got, we assume that if they're in the water and they're swimming around, they still have energy to be there.
That they're doing as well as can be. Same, like you said, other circumstances, if they're swimming around but they have this massive wound, we're not just going to be like, well, he's in the water, so you get to stay put. We're going to help them. But just because they're suckling, it could mean they're hungry. They're going to be hungry before a meal, the same way you and I are. That's not definitely a cause to just take them regardless. They vocalize a lot. People will often say like they're crying. They vocalize so their moms can find them. That's their communication. They're not necessarily crying because they're sad. And I think sometimes it's hard to not put human emotions onto a wild animal. But I think it's also really important to try your best to do when you're out there, when you're out and you've come across a seal pup, to be like, okay, what's normal and what's it's okay that they're vocalizing. They've again energy to do so. But that's another,
and even like over and above seal pups, sometimes that's like the frustrating part of rescue and rehab, is that you have to wait until that animal truly does need your help. So if it's that pup hauling out and then being that, so, it was the pup that was around the boat. And then, we're monitoring and now he's on the beach, clearly no mom. Then, so it's sometimes.
And we definitely have those cases, and they're hard to, it's hard to communicate that sometimes because you have these people that maybe they live on the boat or this is happening on their dock, and you get the first call and you're like, it looks healthy. There's no reason for us to immediately rescue it. Let us know tomorrow. The next day it still looks healthy, or it's active. Hey, it's gone in the water in the last couple of days. Yep, it's been in and out of the water. Well, in that case, it sounds like it's doing pretty good.
Yes, exactly.
Even though you haven't seen a mom, it doesn't mean that maybe mom's not coming back when you're not on the dock. So it's
important to also say that, you'll get there, you'll be like, oh, is the pup still there? Let's say we're talking to the person the next day and they're like, oh, I've been sitting vigil here for hours. Okay. So mom's not going to come back if you're sitting on the end of the dock where the pup is.
Or people will send us a photo and it's them and they're, holding an umbrella over the pup so that it has shade. Well, and we appreciate the sentiment. Everyone's doing it with like the absolute best intentions, and we all want the best possible thing for the pup. But the mom's not going to come back if you're sitting there with your umbrella or it's on your paddleboard and you don't get off your paddle or whatever the case is. So that's definitely, But like you said, we probably said this like 17 times now, but we don't want to rescue them if we don't have to.
No, absolutely.
So you have to wait until they need help before you can help them. Otherwise, we're just taking healthy seals off.
And just because we're observing now doesn't mean that it's not going to end in us rescuing that pup.
Exactly.
It's just all about doing due diligence to ensure that mom is not with that pup, that it truly is abandoned and it truly would die if we didn't intervene at that point. So,
and occasionally they're maybe not always, they might not be in bad shape. So we do get the pups that are, if we want to talk a little bit about human interference, that happens before we get the call. So sometimes people have gone to the other level where they might intervene and try to help the animal before letting us know and before we can say, we're going to monitor. So in those cases, we've had, pups in totes, pups in kennels, in the back of the car. Hey, I have this seal. I've brought it home. Now what? And so those ones, if they've already traveled by car a great distance, they come to the center and they might not necessarily be these sick and injured animals. Again, it's never usually malicious, thankfully, when it comes to harbor seal pups. People see a pup alone and don't realize that is a normal part of their life process. But Yeah.
And that emotion can sometimes neutralize any kind of common sense that would be like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't.
Yeah. It always goes back to outreach and education. And this is why we're doing it. This is why we're collecting it versus this is why we're not going to collect it or why we're going to wait.
And we still have a set of rules. Like we work on behalf of the Department of Fisheries and Oceans.
We work under guidance and permits
in partnership
and all that kind of thing.
with them. And we have a set of rules and protocols and procedures that we have to follow.
Yeah.
And
we didn't make these up on the fly just one day.
Science behind them.
There is science behind it. It is in line with what other facilities do as well. So we're very careful to follow the rules and make sure that what we're doing is best for the animals. I don't know how many times we can say that. Yes.
Best practice.
Always strive to be the absolute best practice that we can. And why shouldn't people touch harbour seals and wildlife?
I would say, first off, don't touch it because it goes against the marine mammal regulations. It is against the law to touch, interfere, interact, swim with purposely marine mammals. Marine mammals, period. So don't do it based on just the legal.
And there are some pretty significant fines if you are caught and reported doing
there's that. But also, there's something called zoonosis, which is diseases that can transfer from animals to people. And they can, even very young harbour seals can have diseases that will transfer and make you sick. So,
and not just sick. I know, like seal finger, if you're brave, want to Google it. I won't put any pictures, but seal finger can be quite severe. It affects your joints. It's not just, I might get the sniffles for a day because I interacted with a harbour seal. They can be severe. So
absolutely. Yeah. So it's just best to follow those 3 little guidelines and let us advise you. Let us get started on the whole process.
Why don't we end it with maybe a little bit of, so we've talked about seal pupping season, how we rescue them, what kind of goes into that, what we look for to rescue them. So what about our classic, like the do's and don'ts, being seal smart? That's kind of what we're saying. How can people be seal smart? What should they do if they come across a seal pup?
So what should people do if they come upon a seal pup? I would say first thing is stay back. I often say if animals are lifting their head and looking at you, you're too close. You are disturbing that animal. So you want to stay far enough back that you really truly aren't interfering with that animal at all.
I did see one thing that was really good, and it's not something we necessarily say often, but I saw another facility that had said if you stick your thumb out and your thumb covers the seal pup in the distance, you're a good distance away. But if it's bigger than your thumb, you're too close.
That's perfect.
And I was like, that's a pretty good, that's an easy, like, if am I too close, am I not? Okay, yes, no.
That's a great idea. So stay that safe distance away. You're going to want to keep other people away. So other beachgoers, maybe there's dogs, that kind of thing. You're going to want to keep them at a safe distance as well. You're going to give us a call. So call us. We're going to start that case file on every animal that gets called in, and then we're going to collect all that information, and then we're going to put a plan together, and you're going to be a part of that. Okay. And then we're going to ask you to take photos. Oftentimes we'll also get you to pin in your Maps app on your phone, pin your location. And sometimes I'll even say, like, if the person is going to be going and can't stay, I'll say, take a couple of landmark pictures for me. So if I send somebody down there, they can use these pictures to locate the seal.
Nothing worse than getting to a location and not being able to find the pup and knowing that it's probably there because maybe you got a picture and it's in the worst condition possible. And you're like, I know you haven't gotten energy and left, but it's really rocky shore and you don't know if it's left or if it's right. And you just end up combing and it's a pain in the butt. So
but just stay back.
Don't touch it.
No.
Don't feed it.
And don't feed it. And give us a call. I mean, if you can remember those 3 things, you're doing.
You're good. I'll put our number on here. If you're in British Columbia, if you're planning to visit British Columbia this summer or anytime, put our number in your phone. You don't have to look it up. We're just going to already be there. If you don't live in British Columbia and don't plan on coming here, but you live maybe in California or Oregon or Washington or
don't call
anywhere
us.
in the world, don't call us.
We get a lot of calls from California, actually.
We do. And the worst part is not realizing until you're like halfway through the conversation. Oh, I got so excited once there was an elephant seal pup. And they're like, I've got an elephant seal pup. It's in distress. And I was like, I love elephant seals.
Yeah.
Like, this is the best day ever. Not for the pup, but if we rescue it, it'd be really cool.
Yeah.
And she gave me the name of the beach, and I'm getting all this information. And I was like, remind me again, like, where's that beach? And she was like, oh, blah, blah, Santa Barbara. And I was like, Santa Barbara, California?
Yeah.
Like, okay, never mind.
I don't know who's optimizing our website, but I got to tell you, because I've been
do a
getting
great
calls from
job.
the East Coast.
Yeah.
So even further away. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think we got a Florida one recently. I don't know what they had out there, but yeah, wherever you are, if there is a stranding network near you in the States, it's a little bit different. But wherever you are in the world, if you're watching this, put the stranding network or the rescue center in your phone. This goes for birds, for any sort of rescue. It's just easy enough to then not have to worry. You know, you have the number in your phone. And very last question. Is there anything you hope, or what do you hope that people take away from this episode and seal pupping season information?
I really hope that people take away one that we're here to help for sure, that they should give us a call. Because no matter what, even if it's a thermoregulating sea lion or if it's a river otter, and we can help explain between the species, or if it truly is your reporting an animal that's you believe to be in distress, like, we're here to help. I think that's good. I think that's about it. What else do I want them to?
I think just call us. We're here to help for anything. We got a call yesterday. What was it? A muskrat? We sent him over to a different rescue center, but you can call us with pretty much anything, and we will either, if it's not something that we can help with, we will direct you on who will help you. If you find a harbor seal pup this coming pupping season, don't touch it, stay back, be seal smart, do all the things. And then also link some websites and stuff for following. You can follow all the patients that we rescue at mmrpatients.org, as well as our website, which I'll put all those on the screen so you don't have to worry about remembering them. But just be seal smart.
Seal smart.
That's all you got to do.